저는 교육공무직본부에서 활동하고 있는 김민철이라고 합니다. 두 가지 질문이 있는데요. 하나는 내용에 관련된 질문이고, 하나는 그냥 이제 그 강사분의 의견을 여쭤보는 것입니다. 첫 번째는 그 마이단 운동 소개하실 때 유럽이 러시아보다 더 통합적이다 이렇게 얘기해 주셨고, 이게 어떤 의미인지 조금 더 자세하게 설명을 해주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 그리고 두 번째는 그 이제 일부 한국뿐만 아니라 세계 단체 중에 운동 단체가 이제 젤렌스키 정부의 친미적이고 친나토적인 이러한 정책 혹은 입장들 때문에 지금 이제 그 러시아가 침공하게 된 것이다라는 입장들이 있는데, 그래서 현재 이 젤렌스키 정권에 대한 SR 혹은 강사분의 평가 혹은 입장은 어떠한 것인지가 좀 궁금합니다.
Okay, so question about Maidan and our relations to Zelensky government. Yes. Okay. So about Zelensky, our position is very clear. We are against all neoliberal practices that are pushed by the Zelensky government, and we were very critical of it. But Zelensky government is democratically elected government, and the government is now responsible for military actions. While we oppose all their economic and social policies, we support their military effort and their diplomatic effort. And about Maidan, I think it's false that it was some pro-US protests. They absolutely wasn't. It was pro-European protest, but not started by European Union, but by Ukrainians. And Russia invaded not because of US or European influence, but because their own interests and their own elite was under the threat. So if Maidan wouldn't happen, we have a good example what Ukraine would look like. It's Belarus. So invasion was an instrument to bring in Ukraine to the fault and to subjugate it to Russian interests. It's not about countering US or European expansion. It's about bringing lands to Russia, to have Russian influence in the independent states. So it was the reason of invasion. And actually West forced Ukraine to adopt Minsk agreements, and Minsk agreements they give a lot of influence of Russia to Ukraine. In general, it was a situation where for Russia and US, they were very happy to cooperate above the heads of Ukrainians.
네, 다른 질문 있으시면 손 들어주세요.
네, 안녕하십니까. 저는 사회진보연대 충북모임에서 활동하고 있는 서세영이라고 하고요. 아까 전에 이제 김민철 동지께서 질문해 주신 거랑 좀 연결되는 질문인데, 하나는 이제 마이단 운동에 자유주의 세력이 좀 주도했지만 좌파도 여기에 같이 해서 제국주의적인 정권이나 이런 것들에 대해서 오히려 더 이제 민주적인 길로 가고자 노력을 했었던 것 같은데, 좀 좌파들이 자유주의 세력과는 완전히 동일하게 그 마이단 운동의 목표를 가지고 참여를 하지는 않았을 것 같다는 생각이 듭니다. 좌파 운동 세력들이 이제 그 마이단 운동에 결합하면서 어떤 지점들을 좀 개입하고자 했는지, 어떤 그 운동을 어떻게 이끌고자 했는지에 대해서 궁금한 게 하나 있고요. 두 번째로 질문드리고 싶은 것은, 저는 그 우크라이나에서 지금 그 이루어지고 있는 뭐 무기적 군사적인 저항이나 이런 것들은 정당하고, 그리고 우리가 그것을 함께 지지를 할 수 있다고 생각을 하는데요. 근데 그러한 좀 그것 또한 어쨌든 군사적인 행위기는 하다고 생각합니다. 우리가 근데 평화를, 저희는 아무튼 전쟁을 반대하고 평화를 이야기하는 사람들로서 이런 군사적 저항이 곧 더 이렇게 확산되거나 그런 것으로 좀 다르게 보여야 한다고 생각을 하는데, 그런 것이 좀 어떻게 가능할지에 대해서 의견을 묻고 싶습니다.
Okay. About Maidan, I would say that unfortunately left wing couldn't produce very strong anti-imperialist position in the Maidan, and it was one of the reasons why it failed. But what was important and where left wing succeeded in promoting a social dimension of Maidan. It wasn't only revolution of national determination against authoritarianism and against Russian imperialism. It was also a social revolution against oligarchs. And there were strikes of the workers. And there were protests by the workers. And we tried to outline this part of the Maidan, that it's not only just a liberal movement, but movement of all of the society that are fighting not only for mentioned reasons, but also for more social, non-oligarchical Ukraine. And it was a general mood of population. Unfortunately, left wing was too weak at the moment and too disorganized, and in some parts they were influenced by the old chauvinist left. So we couldn't do much in this situation, unfortunately. But we tried to give it, to outline its social dimension even more. And so a question about demilitarization, military, and so on and so on. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a very complicated question, actually. I would say that for example, in program of my friend Hoy Hawkins, a member of and the leader of one of the leaders of Green Party in US, in his program he was saying that he wants 75% of military budget of US cut. But if he succeeded and these cuts were implemented, then Ukraine would be lost at that moment. So we are now in the situation where dangers of war and problems of security are very real. And I don't think that reasonable fight for demilitarization is possible now. For me, I think what the left should do is to fight for that militarization and rearmament of these states that are threatened are done in ways that are place people in control and not profits. Also, the more complicates of the situation that most of the threatened states don't have economic capacities to fully arm themselves, because military is costly thing, and it needs a very long-term investments in research and development and production. So, for example, Ukraine couldn't produce modern equipment at the same capacity as the US and even in the same capacities of Russia. So, what the left, for me, should do is to fight for limitation of trade of the weapons and absolutely destroying the production of the weapon for profits. I think that all the military industry must be either internationalized or nationalized and placed on the control of the democratic states, on this, and with the influence of trade unions in having this decision. And I think a very realistic thing is to campaign for just ban on the all military trades. at all. That all the military production shouldn't be for profit. That military should be only for defense purposes. It's very important because now we're in the situation where, unfortunately, world is ravaged by conflicts. Ukraine fighting Russia, Azerbaijan attacking Armenia, China have plans for Taiwan, and Serbia mobilized its forces around Kosovo. Turkey promotes its so-called special operation to destroy Kurdistan. So all of this is signs of very dangerous world in which probably demilitarization is not on the table, unfortunately, right now. So I think the left should fight for that militarization that will happen. So it would happen on the basis of placing people in power and giving them a voice and not profits. So a biggest problem with military sector now is how much for profit is, how much the influence in like capitalist groups that are producing military arms. And I think this should be targeted. And yeah, I don't think that there's prospect for demilitarization now in bigger countries too, because yeah, without US, Ukraine wouldn't be ready to defend against Russia in any way, because we just don't have such industrial powers as Russia. Kosovo, if Serbia will invade, also wouldn't have its capacities to defend itself. So what I think is needed is to place trade, production of, and aid and military aid under democratic control and not the capitalist control. And demilitarization will be probably issue when there will be a more secure world, but not for now, unfortunately.
네, 서단비 동지 질문하세요. 네.
네. 안녕하세요. 저는 이름은 서단비이고 이 사회진보연대 단체에서 활동하고 있습니다. 저는 소감과 질문이 하나씩 있는데 이게 이제 지금 키이우에 계시는 블라디슬라프 씨를 또 언제 볼지 모르겠기 때문에 좀 길어도 두 개 다 좀 얘기를 하고 싶은데요. 일단 소감부터 먼저 얘기를 하면 지금 우크라이나랑 한국이 정말 굉장히 멀리 떨어져 있는데, 그리고 우크라이나가 지금 전쟁이라고 하는 어떤 상황을 겪고 있는데 이런 한계를 뛰어넘어서 오늘 이렇게 연결될 수 있었다는 점에 정말 감사하고 큰 경의를 표하고 싶습니다. 그리고 지금 키이우에 계신다고 알고 있는데 러시아가 키이우 주위의 기관 시설을 좀 대대적으로 파괴하면서 하루 대부분의 시간에 전기가 들어오지 않는다고 알고 있어요. 그래서 오늘 이렇게 또 정말 블라디슬라프 씨를 직접 만날 수 있게 되어서 좀 감동했다라는 점도 얘기 드리고 싶고, 한국 시민들은 우크라이나를 떠올릴 때 우크라이나 시민들의 영웅적인 저항도 물론 생각하지만 주로 파괴된 도시의 모습을 중심으로 파괴, 죽음 이런 이미지를 떠올리는 것 같아요. 미디어에서도 그런 모습을 주로 비추고, 그래서 저 스스로도 전쟁을 제외한 우크라이나 사회와 우크라이나 시민들의 구체적인 그런 삶의 모습들은 거의 생각하지 않았었는데 오늘 강연을 들으면서 우크라이나가 지금 마주하고 있는 여러 현실 중에서 러시아의 침공에 대한 저항뿐 아니라 우크라이나 사회가 진보하기 위해 해결해야 하는 사회 문제들을 구체적으로 알 수 있었고, 그것을 시민들과 함께 해결해 나갈 우크라이나 사회운동의 역할이 매우 중요하다는 생각을 할 수 있게 되었습니다. 그리고 오늘 강연에서도 느낄 수 있었지만 우크라이나 시민들에게 러시아에 종속된 미래와 그렇지 않은 미래는 명백히 다르다라고 하는 걸 좀 더 알 수 있게 됐고, 국제사회가 이번 러시아의 침공을 같이 저지하고 우크라이나 시민들이 원하는 방향으로 이 러시아와의 종속을 끊어낼 수 있도록 함께하는 게 우크라이나 사회가 앞으로 진보하는 방향에 도움이 될 것이라고 생각이 들었고요. 그래서 사실 부족하게나마 좀 더 함께 해야겠다라고 생각이 들었습니다. 그게 제 소감이고요. 질문은 우크라이나 전쟁을 둘러싼 좀 전 세계의 담론을 보면 마치 우크라이나뿐 아니라 동유럽 지역의 좌파는 거의 존재하지 않는 것처럼 여겨지고 있다라는 인상이 있어요. 그러니까 마치 우크라이나 시민들의 자발적인 저항과 사회운동 세력의 존재는 없거나 중요하지 않는 것처럼 여겨지는데, 이런 인식에 대한 그 블라디슬라프 씨의 생각을 듣고 싶습니다. 왜 이런 질문이 들었냐면, 이 전쟁을 미국과 러시아의 대리전이라고 지적하는 것이 이런 시각을 대표적으로 보여준다고 생각하는데, 제가 생각했을 때 가장 중요한 것은 러시아가 우크라이나의 독립을 무시하고 침략 공격을 감행했고 우크라이나 시민들은 그것에 저항하고 있다는 것이지, 침략 공격에 대한 방어가 누구의 어떤 도움을 받아서 진행되고 있는지가 아니기 때문에, 그래서 이런 대리전이라고 지적하면서 이제 무시하는 것이 우크라이나 그리고 동유럽에서의 좌파의 존재나 좌파 혹은 사회운동, 그다음에 시민들의 자발적인 저항이 존재하지 않는 것처럼 이제 그 여겨지는 인식과 연결된다고 생각해서 그런 인식에 대한 블라디슬라프 씨의 생각이 듣고 싶었습니다.
So the first question is about this, like the left in Ukraine, the social dimension, and why it's invisible, as I can understand. And yeah, I know that you had recently or will be had a meeting of such great people as Vijay Prashad and their company of the Continental Institute in Korea. They are very keen on this idea of, well, there is Russia that defending from U.S. imperialism and so on and so on. Unfortunately, there is a strong trend speaking over the head of the people and not connecting with the people on the ground and only giving to their dogmatic interpretation of what's going on and some templates that they are already built in their heads. For them, multipolarity is something more progressive than a rule-based world order. They think that if so-called influence of US challenged by some authoritarian powers, that this authoritarian power immediately have some progressive tendencies in it. So this mostly a geopolitics and America-centric view that is absolutely not a reality of what's going on in Ukraine. Partially, such people are, of course, honest but very misguided people who believe in their dogmatic views of US being the worst country in the world in all of the cases, and all of the problems that are existing in the world are centered only about US, and that no other state have any subjectivity, and no other imperialism has any subjectivity, and actually no other people have any subjectivity. But also, some of these people are directly influenced or paid by Russian and Chinese governments. As you know, Tricontinental Institute and Vijay Prashad are working with Chinese directly. Some members of Progressive International working with Russia and Chinese directly. So there's one part of the people who are directly misguided by their dogmatic tendencies to replace internationalism by geopolitics, by speaking not about from the people's perspective, but from the perspective of states. And the second tendency is people who are directly paid to promote this idea. And unfortunately, it's something that the real left wing should fight against and fight strongly to show that left wing is about ideas of humanism, of a people-centric approach, of anti-imperialism, of self-determination, of national rights, and so on. So Yeah, I think it's a big problem. It exists, and we should fight against it. And yeah, such people on the left are ashamed. And yeah.
네, 지금 시간이 거의 다 됐는데요. 그래도 꼭 정말 아까 말씀드린 것처럼 모시기 어려운 분이기 때문에 네, 임필서 동지 질문까지 받겠습니다.
예, 그 앞에 우리 서단비 회원님께서 약간 그 감사와 경의의 뜻을 표현했기 때문에 저도 그 뜻을 다시 전달하고 싶고요. 그 질문 첫 번째로는 아까 그 전쟁 과정에서 여러 가지 반사회적 법들이라고 쭉 그 부분 굉장히 공을 들여서 자세히 설명을 해주셔가지고 많은 것을 이제 알게 되어서 굉장히 감사하고요. 근데 어쨌든 여러 가지 그 전쟁을 계기로 해서 정부가 여러 신자유주의적인 사회 경제 정책이나 그런 규율들을 빠르게 밀어붙이고 있다라는 걸로 저는 요약을 할 수가 있는 것 같은데요. 질문인즉슨 그래서 이제 이게 일종의 그 향후에 그 유럽연합 가입으로 본격적으로 나가기 위한 일종의 어떤 준비 조건 마련으로 전반적인 이런 경제 사회 정책의 전체 변화들이 있는 것으로 이해할 수 있느냐라는 질문 겸 그다음에 그러함에도 불구하고 그 발표하신 분이나 아니면 그 단체께서는 어쨌든 우크라이나의 유럽연합 가입은 지지하는 것으로 저희가 이해를 하면 되는 것이냐? 그러니까 유럽연합 가입을 지지는 하되 앞으로 그 과정에서 유럽연합의 여러 신자유주의적인 정책이나 규율들을 극복해 나가기 위한 활동을 펼쳐 나가겠다. 뭐 그런 다른 여러 유럽 좌파들의 입장과 같은 것으로 이해하면 되느냐라는 질문을 먼저 드리고 싶습니다. 또 하나 연속으로 같이 얘기하죠. 두 번째로는 두 번째 이왕에 모셨으니까 향후 전쟁 전망을 어떻게 보시는지 실제로 오늘 그 얘기까지는 별로 많이 안 하셨는데 향후 전황이라든가 이런 건 어떻게 보시고 있는지랑 그다음에 우크라이나 내 그 민중들이나 그 사회적인 분위기는 어떤지 여전히 이제 굉장히 좀 그래도 싸울 수 있고 승리할 수 있다라는 그런 자신감은 지금 많이 그런 기분이 많이 올라와서 있는 상태인지 어떤 그런 사회적 분위기에 대해서도 한번 얘기 좀 들어보고 싶습니다.
Okay, thank you for these questions. And actually, question about European Union is very interesting because anti-social reforms that are pushed by our government are against European law. These reforms are too much anti-social that European Union gives our policy recommendation to move to more socially oriented policies. Policies that we are adopting our government are against all documents that we signed with International Labour Organization, which are a part of European Union laws. So a situation was described actually by our one parliamentary that Europe forces us to push for more social reforms, but we won't accept any such foreign intervention in our lawmaking process. So, in fact, it's a situation that European Union pushes for social reforms in Ukraine, and they're saying, guys, do social reforms. You won't win the war with such blatant neoliberalism. We already passed this period. You need some Keynesian reforms. You need for economy. And it's a real policy recommendation from the European Union and preconditions to join the European Union to have a more labor protections than now, more social programs than now. But our Ukrainian government tries to ignore it and push under the pretext of war necessity of this adoption, and it pushes very precarious positions that European Union, on one hand, don't want to accept a country that disrespects its law and less social than European Union, but on the other hand, it feels pressure from the people and to actually include Ukraine in European Union. And we don't have a precise position about joining European Union in our organization, but most of the members think that we should join and we should campaign for this. And actually that joining European Union will give more social protection to Ukraine that it already has, because European Union laws are a lot more progressive than Ukrainian ones. Ukrainian ones is just Wild West type of neoliberalism, while Europe moves in like a little bit away from neoliberalism in more like social direction. And so joining European Union will give very strong labor guarantees and at least some social guarantees for Ukraine. But of course, European Union is still a neoliberal union. And we are hoping to align with radical left forces, such as Razum in Poland, such as different parts of the left in European Parliament that are not anti-Ukrainian, to push for social Europe against neoliberal Europe. So we are thinking that we are, as one of the biggest country in continent in terms of population and land, we shouldn't be excluded from the regional policies. We should have places in the European Parliament, and we should decide, as all of the states, policy of European Union. And in this way, to campaign for social and even I would say socialist European Union in the end, for more social reform, more social security, more worker security, and so on and so on, and to use this as a platform to push a new vision of European Union, a social one. So it's kind of, most of our members think this way. Some think that it's better to stay out of it, but it's really a minority. So yeah, and about military front, unfortunately, I'm not a military expert. I cannot give prognosis and strong analysis, but I am time to time reading analysis of other organizations that are writing some stuff and so on and so on. And what I see now from this analysis, that winter will be hard for both sides. For Ukraine, it will limit possibilities to counter-attack and give Russia time to better defend their positions. But for Russia, it will mean casualties from freezing to death, from hunger, from moral loss, from deserting, because winter is a lot more harsher, and Russia, in terms of equipment for the military, absolutely unprepared. So in one hand, it gives possibility for Russia to better defend. For other hand, it will lower morale even more. And Russian supplies are really fragile now. These new drones developed by Ukrainian army, and I don't know if you know or not, but all the weapons that are delivered from the West, they're delivered with promise not to use them on Russian territory. So Ukraine could strike on Russian territory only with Ukrainian weapons. It's like this politics of compromise of big powers and so on, and all of this crap. So Ukraine developed a new drone that now can strike military bases and supply bases in the territory of Russia far behind the front lines. And with partisan activity, with new drones, with new captured position on Kherson, there are a lot of ways to just destroy Russian supply lines that are very fragile at the moment. And I think it would be crucial in future offenses of Ukrainian army. And also I think there will be probably in Crimea or in other parts of Ukraine. But for now, it's the moment that the offensives are hard and both sides kind of preparing. So I think there will be some time out. Time out not in the sense that there won't be big battles, but time out in the sense of that not much on the map will change. Now the absolutely brutal battle rages in Bakhmut. Russian military group Wagner already said that they don't care about losses from their side. They will just pour as much, as I said, to this meat grinder as possible to win in the Bakhmut. And this situation just forces Ukraine also to move more equipment and personnel to the Bakhmut, and kind of prevents all further advances and just have this massive battle, something like, you know, World War I style Verdun battle. So for now, it hampers possibility for Ukraine to push, because they need to defend the Bakhmut, and gives Russia time to prepare for counteroffensives by Ukrainian side. So winter probably wouldn't see, but I'm not predicting future. I am not a military expert, so took my words with a pinch of salt. But I think that winter will be a timeout for big strategical operations, and such operation will continue in March and later. And about sentiment of the public, well, most of the public, like 90%, according to sociological studies, thinks that any peace negotiations that want to include all Ukrainian territory, including Crimea and Donbas, are unacceptable. So morale is very high, but a lot of people are, especially in the military, are already tired. It's not the thing about morale, but think about just physical condition and moral condition, in the sense that they want to fight for Ukraine and they want win, but they want to see their families again. They want to have some free time and so on and so on. And it's not possible when you are in the army. So in this way, there are a lot of confusion and a lot of a lot of tiredness in all of this, because it's absolutely horrible conditions that are put that you need to fight your nearly all days under the shells and so on and so on. So in this thing, and unfortunately, as you can expect, tiredness is high, but it not correlates with will to fight. So people still want to see in the army still families and to have a rest, but they understand that they need to fight Russian imperialists. That if they won't do this, and they probably couldn't see their families ever again, or live in democratic free state. And especially for people who are from the Donbas origin from occupied territories, it's absolutely no question to continue fight. And generally, civil society are absolutely still very organized, very supportive. Humanitarian aid, military aid absolutely is one of the biggest part of the activities of civil society that are still doing it and continue to do, and no moral losses for them, and they're all very motivated to continue it until the victory, until all of Ukrainian lands will be liberated. So morale very high, some tiredness unfortunately still there, but in any war this will happen like this. So yeah.
그러면은 연사님의 마지막 발언을 듣고서 마치도록 하겠습니다.
Okay, thank you. It was an honor to participate in this event and to speak from Kiev about what's going on, about all the social reforms, but also condition of Ukraine right now. I think it's very important to build these connections. And I want to stress that it is important to have a solidarity and to fight all imperialism and all aggressions against all the people who are oppressed by foreign powers or by their governments, and fight for the freedom and to fight for such human values as democracy, freedom, self-determination, and so on. For me, solidarity is a basic left-wing value that should be supported by all of the left-wing forces and all of the trade unions. And now it's most important to show solidarity around the world, not only to Ukraine, but to people in Iran who are fighting against dictatorship, for people in China who are fighting against dictatorship, for Uyghur who are facing genocide, for Syrians, for people in Palestine who are facing ethnic cleansing from Israel, and so on and so on. So solidarity should be a moral guide and a moral principle for the left wing, and I think that we should adhere to it, and only by that to make right decisions. And thank you all the people who are here and for listening to this, and I hope that we will build more communication, and we will have solidarity between us. Thank you a lot.
네, 긴 시간 함께 해주신 블라디슬라프 씨와 또 통역을 맡아주신 조은섭, 유미영 동지에게 정말 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. 노동운동포럼 2부는 이것으로 마치겠습니다.